Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday Night Domains. Sorry about our holiday hiatus last week. My phone decided it didn't want to work anymore, and that's super fun. Which is really fun whenever everything you do is two-factored. So we've had a fun week trying to get that back, but we're back. Yay! Dad, how you doing?
Yeah, Julie, it's amazing how integral to our lives phones and the internet, and I dare say domain names are now.
Oh, absolutely domain names. Oh, what did I see this weekend? Oh, I saw something. Well, I'll tell you what I have seen is I've done a lot of Googling 'cause I just started a new job. And every time I've Googled recently or Binged or whatever, I get about 5 search results that are ads or sponsored or not what I typed in, which is really frustrating
Yeah,
from your
and
competitors,
with Google, you're getting the AI answer um, above everything else.
which
And
is not always correct.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess if I was like discovering something and I just needed an answer, like who won the gold medal in the 1934 Olympics in hockey,
That's
maybe I'd
helpful.
want the answer. But a lot of times, I think you're kind of looking for, I don't know, I feel like the more they try to assume exactly what I want, um,
The less they know.
yeah.
So, yeah, I've seen that a lot. So I think the importance of domain names is gonna come full circle as Google starts trying to monetize, or not just Google, search engines just monetize ads, and it'll be kind of it'll be interesting to see. But do you have any fun sales this week?
Did I have any fun sales this week? I didn't. Let's see. I didn't have. I had a sale. It's in pending. It's a $600 sale of a TV.com. So we'll see. I won't say what it is, just not to jinx it. But it's a not a real great one. But I have a lot of words that end in TV.com. I just thought that online TV would be an amazing business. Anyone could have their own channel. And again, I always think that people would be empowered to own their own channel when everyone just wants to get 100,000 views on YouTube, and they'll make $91.13. They'll create 30,000 views for YouTube, but what did they really create for themselves? You know what I mean? But so
Yeah,
I've been wrong on this because people haven't wanted to own their own TV stations. But I still hope they do. So I sold that. I got paid on a lease to own sale that was 11,000, and I get 1,000 a month for 11 months. So that was good.
exciting, very exciting.
I got
What's all
paid
this?
on another. What's that?
Real quick, do you want to go through all the different kind of ways people can pay for domains? Because I know they do like the extended payment plan. There's a lease to own. There's auction price. Let's go through those real fast.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing because there used to just be one way, cash on the barrelhead. You pay one payment in cash, we exchange the money, or we have it held in escrow.
Now
And
that's
I
something we can
think
also go into.
And I think that was always a limiting factor. And I always equated it to if you could picture back the first time someone maybe had land in the US and they had cattle or crops or something, and they were like, I want to buy that land. You're like, well, I'm never going to sell it. It's in my family. But someone had to sell it, right? And they're like, well, what would you
Mhm.
sell it for? And the person who wants to buy it, it's not like they're rolling in money. So they're like, well, I think I want to make $300 from that land this year with crops. So I'll pay 1 year's revenue, $300.
Mhm.
But now you talk about buying a house and you're buying, you're paying 10 or 20 or 30 times the rent because you can finance the purchase. You're
Yeah.
going to pay over a long period of time because you get to use the asset for a long period of time.
Mhm.
So I had gone full lease to own back in 2007, and I thought it would have caught on back then, but it took it 15 years until Dan started offering landing pages, and they took a good approach, which wasn't this domain is $3,000, and you can pay 125 a month for 2 years. They were encouraging you to put on your lander, this domain's $125.
They took the car salesman approach.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, because at a car salesman, they'll get you paying way above MSRP.
But what Reza did the research on, the founder of Dan, was if you lead with the big number, they're gone.
Yeah,
In
that's a
their
scary
mind,
number.
it's too much. I knew domains were a ripoff, whatever. You know what I mean? And so the monthly payment at least kept someone around. You
Mm-hmm.
know, 125. Okay, it's a month. Well. Okay, now hold on. I could maybe do that, or I could hide that in this account, or if you had a budget in your company and you had a marketing budget. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you went to the boss and said, "Hey, I need to spend $5,000." That's a whole different ball game than I'm going to spend 125 a month. So this lease to own is a really big factor because for the domainer, it's hard because you're used to having one-off sales. So say I'm used to having a $2,000 sale, a $1,000 sale, $1,500 sale, a $6,000 sale,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden I get like this one $11,000 sale, but I only get $900 now. But I'm going to get it later.
You can only spend the $900. Well, I guess if you're smart, responsible, and all that jazz.
Right. But a lot of people, they need those one-time, I need those one-time lump sums. But I think that most of the time the buyer doesn't equate that future money maybe as meaning all that much. You know what I mean? Because it's like, well, I could pay 1,000 now, or I could pay 100 a month for 2 years. They may just go, I'll start paying 100 a month, because on most lease to own deals, you can walk away with no penalty.
Like no interest?
No, you don't have to make the rest of the payments. When you bought your car,
like you don't sign a long-term contract.
And it's what's called non-recourse, meaning the only recourse the lender has is the name. If you don't make a payment, the name goes back to the old owner and you lose all the money you paid, but you're not committed like on a cell phone contract or something like that to pay like your phone, where you bought the phone for $1,500, you're going to pay $30 a month for 2 years. But if you leave, you owe the rest of that money. So most of today's lease to owns allow the buyer to walk away if they stop paying.
Mm-hmm.
But so they don't have to keep paying.
So what's the difference between the lease to own and then just the payment plans?
So trying to think who has a payment plan. If you finance it through one of the financing company, Domain Capital is the biggest one.
Oh, there's different financing companies. Whoa, whole new host of information here.
Yes, and Domain Capital is a foundational company in our business. I actually sold them the domain name Domain Capital back in 2002.
Oh, that's so exciting!
And I got to know the team there, and they were a big part of the reason I was able to sell seniors.com. Because of some of the transactions we did. So anyway, they are the you want to be careful who you borrow money from. You know what I mean?
No way. Sorry.
Because you could say, well, at least I'm not having to pay it, but you want them to secure the asset. You want them to live by their terms, and they are just at the height of integrity and capital strength. So you don't want to borrow money from someone who all of a sudden is looking to make money off you. Like, hey, I forgot to tell you that we ran out of money, so we couldn't, or just whatever the risk would be.
Yeah.
So now Domain Capital, if you do a transaction with them, you can finance, I think, up to half the domain's value, and you are locked in to 5 years worth of payments. So you've committed to pay a certain amount, you put your down payment down. If you don't make the payment, you're done. But you're kind of locked in to make those payments. Then the opposite side, which we don't talk about a lot, is renting.
Oh.
You can let someone rent the domain, which means they get to use it for every 30-day period, but none of that payment goes toward buying it.
Now that seems like a nice little way to make some cash.
It is. And if you were trying out a business to say, hey, I wonder what this domain would be like, maybe I could rent it for a while. And then normally what the seller will do is they'll say, hey, Julie, you can rent, fashiondomains.com for $100 a month. and then at any time I'll give you the option to buy it for $3,000.
Okay.
And that's something I've done before, where usually you'll give someone a 12-month rent or a 12-month lease, and then at the end of that time they want to buy it. And if they want to wait till the second year to buy it, you usually make it a higher number. Like if you buy it in the first year, you can buy it for $5,000. You can keep renting it, but if you buy it in the second year, it's going to be $7,000.
Oh.
So some of the first domains I bought before I was a domainer back in 2000, 1999, I would buy them on those deals because I could control a big asset by paying $1,000 a year with an option to buy the name for 20 grand. Thebeach.com was one of the first ones I did that with. Anyway,
so
so that's renting. So there's renting with an option to buy. There's financing where you're locked in. You know what I mean? Just like, you paid the money, you can actually buy domains at GoDaddy using Klarna. You could buy a premium domain at GoDaddy using Klarna, buy now, pay later, but you're committed to pay that. I mean, if you don't make a payment, they're sending the collection agency after you and everything. But then most of the ones that people are doing now at Atom or GoDaddy are lease to own. The buyer, if they pay under 12 months or less, there's no interest usually.
Okay.
And if you stretch the payments out to 2 or 3 or 4 years, they may increase the price. Like it's like $10,000, but if you want 24 months, it's like $11,000 over 24 months. But you can stop anytime. But if you stop, you lose everything. So on this deal I did, like the first payment, you never know if they really want the name or if they just want to lock it up for 30 days. Maybe they're trying to sell it to somebody else. Maybe it's a just in case. They're a company and they have their 3 options on a board and they're like, hey, let's tie this one up. But when you get that second or third payment, that's kind of a signal that they can still walk away, but they're probably in it. So yeah, I think financing is important because this is the last thing. I know you have some questions. Last thing is, especially when we used to have 0 interest rates, it wouldn't matter to me if I got $5,000 over 4 years or if I got $5,000 today. Yeah. There wasn't that much inflation. There wasn't that much interest rate. So I would rather get paid out a lot of money over a long period of time, especially if the buyer was more willing to commit to it than if I said, hey, man, I need to know how much you can do right now, maximum. And they're like, hey, I can only do 1,000. But you might be able to sell it for 5,000 over 5 years payments, which is a lot more than 1,000. So
100%. So whenever you're doing your budgeting and your finances and domaining, whenever you sell a name on a payment plan, do you budget that you're going to get all of that money in, or do you budget that you're going to get a certain percentage, or do you do like you said and you wait till you get 2 months and then you expect that you'll get 100%? Like, kind of, how do you factor that into because I know whenever you sell a name, you're automatically thinking, okay, how much are we, we have money to buy more, reinvest in ourselves right now.
I like the way you're thinking. I think I'll wait till the second or third payment comes in to start really, it would be, the theory was if you have the names, it all gets back to the quality of names, that you could move to a payment plan strategy and create a monthly income where at the beginning of every month you got $1,500 or $2,000 or $3,000. And the only other time that's happened in the domain industry was in like 2001 or 2000 to 2002 and maybe 04 to 07. We used to be able to park our domain names and everyone was getting paid $1 to $20 to $50,000 a month from their parking. So the beginning of the month, you got this check. You knew it was going to be there. You could check during the month and see how you're doing. But we had income as domainers.
Yeah.
And when Google kind of stole that business back, that took away a real comfort that we all used to have and that we had income coming in. And income it makes all the difference in the world. So I think that if you have the quality of names that'll sell on payment plans, the thought is you would create a nice passive income stream.
Okay. So you have a question from ECW Wrestling. We wanted to rent out or rent with option to buy, as you mentioned. Then how will we set our DNS settings? Currently, I just set the custom name servers to Afternic, but I can adjust based on your recommendation. thing.
Yeah, this has gotten a lot better. If you're doing a private deal, you may just say to somebody, hey, I'll bill you each month on PayPal. Let me know if you want me to forward the name servers, and you would do it that way. But the intermediaries now, Adam and GoDaddy, they'll actually take control of the name. They'll create an account for the buyer where they can control the settings for the domain name themselves. And the reason this is really important is, especially if you're doing C name records and A records and text records, you're setting up email, you're tying a Google account, you need to do, all that stuff. As a buyer, you want to be able to have that control like you own the name. Mm-hmm. The only thing, if you try to transfer that name out, the account's going to say you're restricted from doing that.
Okay. So they have there is software set up to control this.
So yeah, and if you buy a name from Huge Domains, which is, they do the same thing, you get it in an account, and in the background of the account it says lease to own, lease to own, lease to own. So now there is a risk if you sell a name on a lease to own plan. I think if I ever did a name that was more than like $20,000, I would want a separate agreement with the buyer. And these are the two things I think the buyer has to at least represent, is they're not going to damage the asset. They're not going to damage it by doing SEO, social media, spam, abuse in a way that my property, even though they're renting it from me, it would be like pouring dangerous chemicals on a piece of land. You know what I mean? They were ruining it, and then they can just stop paying and leave. Mm-hmm. So you want to at least have some consequences, or you want to have the ability at the first hint that that's happening to grab the name back. Mm-hmm. And to freeze where you change the DNS settings so it can't be done again. That's the first thing. Second thing is you don't want that buyer to be able to represent that they own the domain name.
That was my other question, was where did the ethics lie in renting a name and then to sell it?
Well, you don't want them, you want to make sure they know that you're not selling them the rights to trademark the name. You're not selling them the rights to own that brand. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so what you want them to do is you want them to be able to say in any official documents, we operate on the domain name fashiondomains.com under lease. You know what I mean? So it's clear to anybody out there that if this company goes bankrupt, that asset that they're leasing is not theirs. You know what I mean? It's clearly under lease from someone else. And so because
if you get a really good brandable and then they build out their business, they rent it, they trademark it, and then they stop paying, you get the name back, it's trademarked. That doesn't have the same value.
Yeah.
Got it. Interesting.
So now, if you're selling a name that you bought for $38 for $4,000 over 3 years, you're pretty much going, I'll take the $4,000. But if you were going to sell something bigger, you would want that agreement. And mostly what you want is you want the ability to, there's also deal risk in any deal. Someone can commit to a deal with you and then say, oh, I'll just sue them later. I'll tie them up in court. I'll do whatever. So you want to have levers that the domain immediately reverts back to you. The domain comes right back to you in the escrow agreement. You know what I mean? So it's like, hey, we're going to argue about it, but I got the name while we're arguing. You know what I mean? So I think those would be the things that would be important if you weren't sure about the buyer. Now, as a buyer, I love lease to own because I can get into more name than I could maybe afford. Mm-hmm. And as an operator, you should love lease to own because you might say, I'm going to pay $100 a month over 5 years. I'm going to come up with the first 2 payments out of my cash. But then I want this site to be making $100 to be able to pay for the name. You know what I mean? The site is making the money to pay for the name, but you get the impact of being like the name that we bought, Fashion Domains. I bought that from Huge Domains on a 2-year payment plan, but I get to be Fashion Domains right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I get to be that, build it,
Start generating income from it.
so I really like it on the buy side, and I think that offering payment plans, in my opinion, right now, is a gateway to get a sale. In other words, you're offering the payment plans to negotiate. Say you wanted to pay $500 and I wanted $3,000. You say you could go to $700, and I say, well, I could go to $2,700. Then it's easier for me to say, well, tell you what if you did $2,400, but I let you pay it $100 a month over 2 years? So it kind of keeps the negotiating going. And I think that offering payment plans is a way for you to then, sometimes the buyer will be like, okay, I'll do $1,500, but I can pay right now. You know what I mean? And so I think that it seems to sellers like buyers should love the payment plan, but a lot of times they want to use the payment plan to lock in a number over time, and then they want to offer an upfront number, which gets you what you wanted to begin with. So, great question, Julie.
Well, and just from a newer domainer's perspective, I'm trying to sell anything I can. So if I do, lease a name, even if I don't get the full cost out of it, I get my asset back. I made free money.
Yeah, like if you had your Scottsdale estate attorney, it might be easier to outbound that name and say, would you like to own this name for $100 a month?
That's a really good idea. And it would work out great if my email stopped bouncing. So
we'll talk about that. But I just mean in terms of, and you could even say, I'll give you the second month free. You know what I mean? It's basically you're saying, I'll give you 60 days to check out what it's like to own this name, and then they have the assuredness. The fact that a third party is holding the name is really important, because the buyer knows that if they pay their $100 a month for 2 years, they're going to get the name at the end of 2 years. Or if they pay it off early, the name's going to go immediately to them. They don't have to re-haggle with me. Oh, you know what? I didn't understand. And the seller can go, yeah, and so for sure that it's like with a car, you pay it off, you get the pink slip. You know what I mean? And having the intermediary there is really good. And at the same point, for a seller, I don't have to play collection agency, have someone go, oh man, can you I have the money next week? You know what I mean? And then you can say, well, talk to GoDaddy, you know what I mean? Talk to the intermediary, and the name's going to come back to me. And if you want to restart a new plan, we could talk about it. But at least you don't have to necessarily be the bad guy. The bad guy is already written in stone that the name comes back to you. But in terms of if we feel, I think people don't see all the time the great value domain names could be. And that's either one, because it's not true, or two, we haven't provided a lot of education. If the problem that we were all having was, man, I got a lot of people that want my names, they just can't afford my price, that's where the payment plans could really thrive. But I think we're still trying to convince people that they're worth anything.
We're still trying to get awareness, I think. But that's okay. I mean, that's where we're at, and anyone who actually knows they are worth something. There is data on that. There's articles in Forbes. There is very highly accredited people that know that domain names do have value, or else people wouldn't be spending millions of dollars on them. So, we've got 6 more minutes left on this portion of the show. Afterward, we will be catching everybody on Twitter. But Dad, unless there's something else you want to talk about, I think 5 minutes on potential domain name scams might be really helpful.
Okay, that's a good one. Good question. Yeah. I'll give you the top 5.
Okay.
The top 5 are, number 1. Hey, Julie, I just saw you registered Scottsdale estate attorney. I'd like to buy it. How much do you want? And you're like, oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I want to sell the name. And you go back and you say 4,000. And they say, we'll be willing to buy it for 2,000. And then what do you say?
3.
Or you say yes.
That too.
And then they say, As part of our buying process, we need to do some due diligence. Do you have a domain appraisal? We need the domain to be appraised by this company for $99. And they're just toying with you because they know you want a sale so badly. And they put this big number up there of $2,000 that you could get just by paying for a $99 appraisal. And that's what they wanted in the first place. So that's probably the one that could get new domainers.
So how would you combat that? Would you say if you pay for it, I'll take it off the asking price?
No, you just walk away and you know that they're not serious.
Okay.
I mean, you just have to treat them like it's a Nigerian bank scam or something.
Got it.
It's hard because you're like, no, I can make it happen. You know what I mean? But
so there's no people don't ask for that in sales. They don't ask for domain appraisals. Well, yeah, because they really don't mean anything.
I mean, if you want to go to the next level, you can say something like, I believe an appraisal and everything involved with buying a domain should be done before the purchase. Please feel free to do all the due diligence you need at your expense. You could say, if you want, I will credit you $100 in a successful transaction, you know, for $2,000, and I'll rebate the cost of the appraisal. So I just think you can't engage with them. You can't be personable. You just have to say in writing what you will do and what you won't do. But that's probably the one that's scam. Second scam is the renewal scam. You will actually get mail by having a domain name. Back in the days before all the whois was private, so if some of your names don't have whois privacy, you'll get a renewal notice and it'll say notice of renewal. And it'll make it look like it's from your registrar and you've got to renew the name, and you can send in a check to tell you how old this scam is. And what it really says is at the very bottom, we are not your registrar. We are selling an SEO service or something like that. But they make it look like it's a renewal.
Okay.
That's number 2. What is number 3?
Number
3 would be when you're buying domains, people mixing up the little L and the big L.
Well, been there.
And typing it the wrong way, or not telling you until after you bought it that it's expired and you have to transfer it and things like that. So I'd say those would be the 3 that I know of.
Awesome. Well, then, we'll answer this question and we'll hop over to Twitter.
Right.
Once again, guys, we'll be on Joe Domain's Twitter space. Community_CFD will repost the space. We'd love to see you all there for a little bit more like interactive chats.
Okay.
And Dad, let's answer ECW's question.
I beg your pardon?
Do you see ECW's question?
Yes. Let's see. Okay, so here's the hard part. Just because a name is selling, he says, I have a domain where the existing name of a 2word.com in the reverse order from mine is selling for $5,000. How would you recommend I set my structure? And I like his question because it gives me a good additional factor, which is, what is he looking to do? And he says, I'm looking to hold the name for 2 to 3 years. I'm not looking to sell it right away. I'm not looking to only sell it if I get $1 million. It's my life's goal. You know what I mean? I am willing to wait a little bit to sell it. And so in this case, he's comparing it to having, say, Crypto Atlanta was for sale for $49.95 and you had Atlanta Crypto. I think the region and then the crypto is a better name. But just because Huge Domains has it at $49.99 doesn't mean they're going to sell it at $49.95. So I would stick to what you thought you wanted to get when you bought the name. And if it was $2,995, I would stick to that, even if someone else has theirs priced higher. Because Huge Domains has names that they price at $49.95 that they're dropping. You know what I mean? So, you know, they could drop that in 8 months, you know, and still all the way up until they dropped it, they have it at $49.95. Because remember, they're not a domainer. They're a company with millions of domain names. A system is pricing them based upon metrics. They are not sitting there and going, "Oh man, I think we made a mistake on that one." You know what I mean? It's a $3 million name company. So I wouldn't let that affect. I would still stick to what you wanted when you got it. And if that was
Awesome.
1,000, go for 1,000. If that was 15,000, go for 15,000. But I wouldn't do it. Let me see if I can translate our question here.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can
Let
have
me
an
see what
Arabic
Google
speaker. Hold
Translate will
on.
do.
Let's see. I gotta pick the language here.
I can't copy it. It only gives me to show.
Hold on a second. Let's see. We're gonna try to do this here. Okay, I got it. I assuming this is Arabic, so if it's another language, it says in case of lease to own, what happens to the domain name if the buyer paid for 11 months and then disappeared with 1 month remained? So it is crystal clear what happens. The intermediary, GoDaddy or Adam or somebody, they'll treat the 11th month just like the second month, just like the 5th month, just like the 6th month. The payment's due on the 11th of the month. There might be some 5-day grace period or 3-day grace period. If the name isn't paid for, there might be a warning message to the buyer. And then you'll get a message from as the seller saying, we've had to cancel this transaction. Here is the auth code to move the domain name back to you. And up until the point the buyer is paid for the whole domain name, yes, even if they paid for 11 months and didn't pay the 12th month and they passed their grace period or their window or whatever the terms were, the name would revert back to you.
All right.
Conversely, if you paid 11 months and on the 12th month you made a mistake, you forgot to pay it, it bounced, you didn't give them a new credit card, something, you could lose everything you paid to date. Now, you may contact them later and say, "Hey, man, but in terms of what would happen, yes, any missed payment reverts back to the owner."
Alrighty, well, that is all for the first portion of the show. We will see you guys on Twitter Spaces at Joe Domains. We'd love if you would like and retweet the space. Then feel free to hop up as a speaker and let's have a nice little coffee chat.
All right. See you, Jules. See you,
Bye,
everybody. Thanks
everybody.
for coming in. Thanks, ECW. Thanks to all of our listeners.